watchers and poll observers. And the message is there. We have to make sure it penetrates at every level of society, across every age group, across every ethnicity, race. We all have to be in this because this is truly an election of a lifetime.
And that can't be underscored any more greatly than saying how that is so the truth. And to really embrace the fact that we must get out there and vote, encourage others. And actually, so one thing that I feel very encouraged by is some creative thinking for polling stations and the limitations in some areas where I believe this started in Wisconsin with the basketball stadium there, that the players were saying, let's open this up at our arena as a polling station.
Yes, this is terrific. It's now the entire NBA. The policy was they were recruiting all of the NBA arenas to be polling stations, and there was a recruitment of NFL stadiums. I don't know if that was effectuated or not, but I know the NBA arenas have been. Right here in New York, Madison Square Garden is going to be used as a polling station. And why that's so important is because if you do vote in person, you won't have any problem with social distancing when you have those size polling areas. And also, it's a little cachet. You know, we can bring in the young people who are fans of sports. They get to go into the arena. One of the ideas I had, I don't know if it's going to happen, I would love to see members of the NBA teams at those polling station as observers. I think it would be just a great happening for young people.
Yes. I see it as really being a draw. You come here, you're going to see, some of your star players that you can only see on TV, maybe. So yeah, that would be
Sure.
great. I hope that happens.
Yeah, I hope it happens. I just think that anything that you can do to make voting easier, more pleasant for everyone, whatever you can do to get people to those polls within reason, like something like that, is always a positive. I know when I work outside the polls as the lawyer protection, I bring bottles of water and I bring snacks. So if a line starts to form, I give them out to the voters. I want to keep them there. They have to stay. Sometimes there are long lines.
Right. And what the advantage of having a stadium where, as you say, we can have social distancing so easily, but it spreads it out too in terms of the entrances and the exits. They're bountiful in the arenas. So when I heard that, I thought, there's just this wonderful energy of finding solutions.
Yes, and that's the thing, Kate. The solutions have been out there for a long time. I mean, the House passed this law with 10 different reforms in 2019. The Brennan Center for Justice has had a list of reforms. It's about political will. So we're at a moment right now where the political will may have to come from NBA players, and that's great too, because wherever it can come from to effectuate change immediately and get more people involved in the system, I'm 100% for it, and I happen to be a big sports fan, so I think it's a great idea on a lot of levels.
And considering how, people, our society has been having to have very limited access to sporting events, as you were saying, to walk into an arena will definitely be an exciting thing.
Sure. I think it would be a great thing. And it can get young people especially excited. What could be bad about getting young people excited about participating in their democracy, especially at a moment like this? Absolutely nothing. It's the best thing we can do as a society.
And certainly we've seen the younger generation very involved in the marches and in the protests, which of course signals that their passion and their desire for bringing attention to change and wanting to initiate change. So here, as you were saying, changing that rage to engage, how do we ensure that we get that message across?
Okay, so number one, and we all understand, for better or for worse, we live in an age of celebrity. So it is important that sports stars and entertainers and people that connect, especially with young people, get that message out every day of the week on social media, in virtual appearances, in public address announcements. We have to keep it out there in the forums that reach people. You know, Kate, in 2016, it's so sad. 100 million eligible voters did not participate in the presidential election of 2016. 100 million.
I
And
and what
is
is
that
that? Yeah, what is that?
well, the Knight Foundation did a study, and they said it's basically people who are disengaged, don't feel that the system includes them, people that have a lot of low information and not people that watch the news. We have to make it cool for young people to be in the system. And and it's not enough. Like I said, step one, the marches and the demonstration, the protests are great. But in 2016, I'll never forget, a few days after the election, I was so upset. I came back from Florida doing my voter protection work, and I was watching all these demonstrations that broke out, many in New York near Trump Tower, and all these young demonstrators saying he's not my president. And I turned to my wife and I said, I would like to ask each and every one of them if they voted on Tuesday. And I'll bet you the answer would not be in a very high percentage. So we can't complain after the fact. We have to do something before the bad thing happens.
Exactly. Yes. So we just need to keep putting one step ahead of the other and doing what we can. No act is too small, because together it just is a groundswell of making this good positive change in our country.
Absolutely, and just simple things. If you would close schools, if you would make Election Day a holiday, if besides arenas, if you used big box stores, if they were donated for the day to be used, you know, the Walmarts and the Targets and the stores of those sizes. If you would just do simple things like have more drop boxes. These are very doable things. This is not a complicated science. These are simple things that we can do, but we have to just do them, and we only have a little over 60 days to do it.
And could we do something like making Election Day a holiday so that it allows people to have enough time if they have to stand in line to cast their ballot? What does it take to make that change?
Essentially, it's going to take an act of Congress. It's been talked about for decades and decades. A state could make it a state holiday, but it hasn't happened. And like I said, once again, if there's a groundswell of voters, politicians, I once spoke at a high school, and I told the high schoolers, politicians are so scared of you. You are the power, because once you become a registered voter, you have the power to elect them or reelect them or vote them out. And if there's a groundswell of public opinion that goes one way, politicians are going to follow. We would like to think of them all as leaders, and we have some, but most of them are followers. And if there's a groundswell of public opinion going that way for these things that we mentioned, they will happen.
And I believe one thing that you also recommend, if you anticipate there being challenges, to request an absentee ballot.
Oh, yes. So right now, Kate, there are more than 190 lawsuits going on in 43 states regarding things like sending out applications automatically. The president's team is opposing that. There are lawsuits regarding expanding the deadlines on receiving ballots. There's a lawsuit about Alabama requiring a notary. Can you believe this? Requiring a notary for your absentee ballot. You're a low-income person or a rural person. I mean, what's the chances that you're going to get a notary to do this for your ballot? So these are all these lawsuits going on now, preemptively, and most of them have not been decided yet. So everything is in flux right now, and we all know that the rule of law has been assaulted quite greatly in the past 3.5 years. So we have to put a lot of hope in the courts right now.
Yes, and thus just really be paying attention and using our energy to make sure that we're focused on that, to not allow any of these really skewed kinds of things to go on, because it just really seems, I'm going to go to mind-boggling, that for something that is so critically important, that there are those who want to thwart it and limit the people who come out to vote.
Yes, and Kate, you used a great word, energy. Because if we could get our energy and focus on this, we as the people, could make this happen. And in my book, I quote from Susan B. Anthony, and she said, "Someone struggles for your right to vote. Use it." And I also quote from one of my heroes, Fannie Lou Hamer, who's one of the great voting rights heroes of the 60s. And she really simplified it for all of us. She said, "Whether you have a PhD or a no D, we're in this bag together." And that really says it all. We're in this together. We have to make it happen together.
Exactly. And that's where we can really feel the power that we have, but we need to exercise it. That means getting to the polls. And if we, for whatever reason, are feeling some uncertainty or just want more information, education, really, your book, new book, Voting, the Ultimate Act of Resistance. It's available now. Very readily. We can, because of this time of getting materials delivered to us, it's so easy to get a book, and potentially even the library may have a copy.
Yes, and your neighbor Amazon certainly has it on there in both versions, digital and the regular copy.
And the digital has really been very, very popular this year because of being shut down, and libraries have really upped their quantities of digital material. So that's very popular. One way or another, though, this is the education that we need to hear the stories, read the stories that you share, because you've been involved in this. As you said, you've really been actively involved for the last 16 years.
Yes, and what I want to encourage your audience, in reading the book, you're going to see what voter suppression looks like, because there's stories of the police coming for me in Philadelphia, and a judge coming at me in New Jersey, and basically everyone coming after me in Florida. It's a battleground. It's a real battleground. Appreciate your right to vote, because someone is trying to stop some people from voting. So don't let that ever happen to you.
Exactly. So act, vote, and we should mention your website too, because there's just, again, good information there and getting to know a little bit more about you, Richard.
Oh, thank you. Yes, that would be 877call-law.com, CALLLAW. So 877call-law.com.
Perfect. Well, this has been such a critically important conversation. I'm so grateful to you for your passion and sharing this information with us. It could be such a much longer conversation, but I think the thing to do is just get the book, read it, and really, all of us, get inspired and get out there and cast our ballot, right?
Yes, let's just all get out there. And it was an honor, Kate. I really appreciate you having me and getting the message out.
Well, then we've made a good team approach on this, right?
Terrific.
Yes.
This is what we're looking for, that kind of team energy.
Yes, indeed. Well, let's look forward and upward, shall we?
Absolutely. It's the only way to go.